What happens to a human when they don't sleep? Not for a night, not for two, but for 11 straight days? In 1963, a 17-year-old high school student named Randy Gardner decided to push the limits of human endurance, not by climbing a mountain or swimming an ocean, but by simply staying awake. No sleep, no naps, no dozing off, just raw, unfiltered consciousness for 264 straight hours. What began as a simple science fair project quickly spiraled into one of the most fascinating, disturbing, and still talked about sleep experiments in modern history. Gardner's feat remains the longest scientifically documented period a human has voluntarily stayed awake without stimulants. But what did it do to his mind, his body, and more importantly, what does this extreme challenge teach us about the power and absolute necessity of sleep? Buckle up, because this isn't just a tale of sleeplessness. It's a story that reveals how fragile the human mind becomes when denied one of its most fundamental needs. How it all began. Randy Gardner wasn't a scientist. He wasn't a medical student or a biohacker. He was a teenager. And like many teenagers, he had an idea that sounded wild but strangely doable. It all started as a school science fair project. Randy and two of his friends debated what would be a cool experiment, one that hadn't been done before. They considered exposing plants to rock music or watching how mold grows in dark places. But then Randy thought, what if I stay awake and test how long the human body can go without sleep? It sounded like the perfect mix of daring and science. His friends agreed, and just like that, the plan was set. They didn't know it at the time, but this little experiment would become the subject of global fascination. What started in a San Diego bedroom would end up altering the way we understand sleep forever. No sleep, no stimulants, just willpower. Here's what makes Randy Gardner's experiment so remarkable. He didn't rely on drugs or caffeine to stay awake. No energy drinks, no pills, just sheer determination and some good friends to keep him alert. He and his buddies developed a schedule filled with activities, basketball games, card playing, long walks to keep his brain stimulated. The rules were strict: no sleep, no cheating, and constant monitoring. Sleep researchers even got involved, intrigued by the potential insights. As the days passed, Gardner's body began to show signs of deterioration, but his resolve never wavered. He was determined to see it through. In today's world, people struggle to get through a workday without a double espresso. Randy, he faced the crushing weight of sleep deprivation using nothing but his teenage grit. That's what makes this so fascinating. This wasn't an experiment fueled by technology. It was powered by the raw drive to push human limits. Have you ever pulled an all-nighter? Now multiply that by 11. That's what Randy faced, without naps, without breaks, without help. The real question is, why didn't he just collapse? A mind begins to fray. The first 48 hours weren't easy, but Randy managed to keep himself fairly sharp. He played pinball, walked around town, and did his best to stay mentally active. But by day 3, things began to change. He struggled to focus. His memory began to slip. He couldn't recall words or complete thoughts with the same clarity. By day 4, his sense of taste was off. He started slurring his speech, and his coordination took a hit. By the time he reached day 5, he was hallucinating. He thought he was a famous football player. He saw road signs where none existed. His brain was essentially dreaming while awake. This is where the science got really interesting and really disturbing. Sleep deprivation doesn't just make you tired, it rewires your brain, blending fantasy and reality in ways that can mimic serious psychiatric conditions. And remember, this was just a teenager being watched, documented, and slowly unraveling in real time. Hallucinations and cognitive collapse. By day 6, Randy Gardner was no longer the same person who had started this journey. His brain was falling apart, neuron by neuron. He began to confuse objects. He thought a street sign was a person. At one point, he believed he was running a race against imaginary people. When doctors tested him, they found he could barely perform simple math. He'd forget instructions halfway through. His attention span, gone. He experienced microsleeps, where the brain briefly shuts down for seconds without the person realizing. That's terrifying. It's like your body is trying to sleep against your will. By day 8, Randy could barely form coherent sentences, and yet, somehow, he kept going. His friends kept him active. Doctors monitored him. But behind the scenes, concern was growing. Everyone wondered the same thing. How much longer before something broke? Here's something wild to think about. At this point, Randy's brainwaves resembled someone in stage 1 sleep, even though he was awake. That means his body was in a dreamlike state, with his eyes open. The media frenzy and growing concerns. As Randy Gardner's sleepless journey stretched beyond a week, word got out. Local newspapers picked up the story, then radio, then national television. Suddenly, Randy became a media sensation. Reporters showed up at his doorstep. People followed him around, hoping to witness history. But the excitement came with pressure. The more people watched, the harder it became to back out. Randy was now a symbol of endurance, but doctors were increasingly worried. While he didn't suffer permanent damage, thankfully, no one could be sure what the long-term consequences would be. At that time, sleep science was still in its infancy. The world was watching a live experiment with no clear rules or precedent. The media loved it. Scientists were intrigued. But behind the headlines, a teenager was falling apart 1 hour at a time. Reality bends and blurs. By day 10, Randy Gardner was essentially sleepwalking through consciousness. His speech was barely understandable. He forgot what he was saying mid-sentence. He stared blankly for long periods, lost in thought, or possibly in hallucination. He could no longer recognize close friends. His body was deteriorating. He was shaky, uncoordinated, and deeply confused. On day 11, as he approached the final hours, Randy was tested one last time by researchers. He failed almost every test. His memory, reflexes, and perception were all at rock bottom. And yet, when midnight struck on the final day, he stood tall, exhausted, broken, but victorious. He had made it. 11 days, no sleep, no shortcuts, just raw determination. And then, he was finally allowed to sleep. Would you believe this? After staying awake for 264 hours, Randy only slept for 14 hours before waking up. His body had reached its limit, but even then, it couldn't sleep forever. That's how strange sleep deprivation is. Did he fully recover? You'd think that after such a brutal experiment, Randy Gardner would suffer long-term effects. Surprisingly, he didn't. He caught up on sleep over the next few days and gradually returned to normal. His cognitive functions improved. The hallucinations vanished, but that doesn't mean it was safe. Researchers concluded that Randy had simply been lucky. He was young, healthy, and had support. For most people, staying awake even 3 to 4 days can lead to psychosis, heart issues, and a complete nervous breakdown. Later in life, Randy admitted the experiment may not have been a good idea. He suffered from insomnia and struggled with sleep health well into adulthood. The experiment earned him fame, but it also gave him a glimpse into what it means to completely lose touch with reality. It's one thing to be tired. It's another to become a stranger in your own mind. What science learned from Randy's sleepless quest? Randy Gardner's experiment gave scientists a unique opportunity to study sleep deprivation in real time. What they found was staggering. Sleep isn't just about rest, it's essential to survival. The brain needs sleep to process memories, regulate emotions, and flush out toxins. Without it, things fall apart fast. Randy's experiment became a benchmark in sleep research. It showed how quickly the brain deteriorates and how vital even short naps are to mental health. Today, his journey is referenced in neuroscience, psychology, and sleep medicine. But it also sparked debates about ethics. Should extreme experiments like this be allowed? How do we protect people from pushing their limits too far? In the end, Randy's story became a powerful reminder. We're not machines. And sleep, it's not a luxury. It's a biological requirement, just like breathing. Why this story still matters. Today, we live in a world that glamorizes hustle, late nights, early mornings. I'll sleep when I'm dead. But Randy Gardner's 11-day sleepless journey is a haunting, powerful reminder that we need sleep just as much as food or water. It keeps us sane. It keeps us human. Randy didn't use his story to chase fame or fortune. In fact, he went quiet for years afterward, but his legacy lives on, in science, in sleep clinics, and in conversations like this one. So the next time you think about pulling another all-nighter or sacrificing sleep for productivity, remember what Randy went through. And ask yourself, is it worth it? Sleep isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is close your eyes and rest. If this story fascinated you even half as much as it did us, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and share this video with someone who always says, sleep is for the weak. Trust us, Randy Gardner proved otherwise. And now it's your turn. What's the longest you've ever stayed awake? Let us know in the comments below.